Welcome to this explainer. Look, today we're going to completely shift how you view legal compliance as a digital creator. We're taking what usually feels like dry, boring international governance and turning it into a high-stakes survival guide for your borderless business. If you've ever posted a sponsored reel, signed a brand deal, or literally just worried about getting paid, you are in exactly the right place. Let's get into it. Right out of the gate, we have to ask a massive question. Is hashtag ad enough to keep you safe worldwide? So many creators assume that just slapping hashtag ad on a sponsored post is this ultimate magical shield that protects them everywhere. Well, I'm here to tell you it doesn't. The internet obviously made your work borderless, but the law has stayed stubbornly local. Today, we're busting the dangerous myth that a single hashtag keeps you safe, and I'll show you how relying on it could actually expose you to some massive penalties abroad. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover the hashtag ad illusion. Second, we're looking at stricter global disclosure rules. Third, we dive into the unregulated market trap. Fourth, employee reclassification risks. And finally, number 5, building your borderless strategy.
All right, Section 1, the hashtag ad illusion. The US FTC sets a floor, not the ceiling.
So most US-centric advice misses one absolutely crucial reality. The Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, requires disclosures to be clear and hard to miss, right? And hashtag ad is just the common shorthand for that. But here's the catch. If you have an international audience, treating the US standard as your absolute ceiling is exactly how you fall out of compliance. Why? Because the US just sets the baseline floor. Several other countries build a much higher, much stricter ceiling. Let's look at a real-world scenario to see how this actually plays out. Imagine a creator named Raj posts a sponsored reel. He buries his disclosure in this giant wall of 20 hashtags at the very bottom of his caption. Now, under a really loose read of US rules, this might be fine-ish, but his UK audience triggers the CMA's no-scroll rule. This means the disclosure literally must be visible instantly without the viewer ever having to tap more. So it's the exact same post, right? But he's compliant in one market and completely at risk in another. Moving on to Section 2, stricter global disclosure rules, comparing the mandates across major markets. When you actually compare the rules side by side, the danger becomes super obvious. In the US, it's about disclosing that material connection. But look at the UK. You have that strict no-scroll rule we just talked about. In India, the ASCI requires clear, upfront visual and audio markers. And hey, if you're a finance creator, India's SEBI framework strictly governs who can even give investment advice publicly. In Singapore, the ASAS demands prominent, hard-to-miss placement. And over in China, the CAC runs a no-degree, no-platform credential rule for expert content. You see the pattern? A single hashtag simply doesn't cut it globally. So what should a multi-market creator actually do with all this? The solution is beautifully simple, honestly. Build to the strictest standard you touch. If any part of your audience sits in a strict market like the UK or India, just apply that country's rule everywhere. One clear, upfront, unmissable disclosure keeps you safe across the board. Oh, and by the way, remember this. A free product deal is still a material connection. You absolutely must disclose gifted products just like you would a paid post. All right, Section 3, the unregulated market trap, when no rules means more hidden risk. This brings us to probably the most counterintuitive truth in creator law. When does unregulated get dangerous? Look, a lot of creators think, hey, no creator laws? Great, more freedom for me. Completely wrong. An unregulated market isn't freer. It is way riskier. Because when there are no specific definitions for creators or freelancers to protect you, legacy courts just fall back on generic labor laws. And we're talking laws written decades before the internet even existed. And guess what? Generic labor law loves to sort people into just 2 boxes. Which leads perfectly into Section 4, employee reclassification risks. Are you a contractor or an employee? The brutal cost of getting it wrong. If a court decides your long-term brand relationship looks a little too much like employment, the bill can be totally brutal. You need to watch out for these 4 warning signs in your own deals: control, dependency, exclusivity, and duration. If the brand dictates your exact daily schedule or tools, if they make up all your income, if you're barred from working with anyone else, or if the deal runs for months or years, you are waving a massive red flag. This is happening everywhere. In India, corporate audits are triggering reclassifications of gig workers. South Korea actually applies an employee presumption in certain dependent work situations. Even in the US, heavy control can flip your independent contractor status. It is a very real global risk. Let's ground this with a specific example. Imagine you signed a 2-year exclusive ambassador deal in Brazil. Just one client, a fixed monthly retainer, and a brand-set posting schedule. To a creator, this probably feels incredibly stable. But in a generic law market like Brazil, if a legacy labor court audits this, all 4 of those warning signs are flashing bright red. You could be retroactively reclassified as an employee, meaning the brand would suddenly owe you years of back benefits, like Brazil's mandatory 13th month salary. It's a mess for everyone. It turns out having clear regulation often works as a really good safety net. Let's bring it all together in Section 5, your borderless strategy. Which country's rules actually apply to your deal? So, say you're a creator sitting in Singapore, signing with a brand in the US, but reaching an audience in the UK. Whose rules actually apply? Here's your simple blueprint. Step 1. Your contract's governing law clause decides your payment and dispute rules. Step 2. Your disclosure standard follows the location of your viewers, not your contract. And Step 3. Enforcement. If things go wrong, you don't file an international lawsuit, you leverage local administrative penalties. That third step is where your real leverage is. Suing an international brand across borders is almost always way too expensive for a solo creator. So you flip the strategy. If a US brand ghosts you on an invoice, you politely remind them of the double damages penalty under New York's Freelance Isn't Free Act, or if a Singapore agency sits on your cash, you gently flag the risk of IMDA grant blacklisting. Seriously, referencing specific local administrative penalties in an email is very often the fastest way to unblock stuck payments without ever needing a lawsuit. So, I'll leave you with this question to chew on. Which country's freelancer laws are actually governing your next deal? Are you risking your entire content archive by applying a basic US baseline to a strict UK audience? Are you operating in a supposedly free, unregulated market that might reclassify you tomorrow? Take a really hard look at your contracts today, because understanding the rules of the specific markets you touch is honestly the only true way to build a safe, profitable, and truly borderless business.